When I was asked to introduce my husband, JD Vance, to all of you, I was at a loss. What could I say that hasn't already been said before?
The cameras were rolling, the lights were on. The crowd was silent with anticipation. And then, just as JD Vance leaned in to make his point, Usha Vance cut him off. What she said next didn't just stun him into silence. It left the entire room breathless. This wasn't a private squabble behind closed doors. This was public, national, on record. In a single bold moment, Usha Vance, normally seen as JD's calm and composed wife, took the spotlight and flipped the narrative. Whether it was a calculated strike or a heat-of-the-moment response, the result was the same. JD Vance looked visibly shaken. Political commentators scrambled for explanations. Social media exploded with memes, hot takes, and speculation. Who are JD and Usha Vance, really? JD and Usha Vance have often been portrayed as a political and intellectual force, each impressive in their own right. JD's rise from a troubled Rust Belt upbringing to best-selling author and U.S. Senator is the stuff of modern American myth-making. His memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, captured national attention and opened doors to elite conservative circles. But his political evolution, from critic of Trumpism to staunch ally, has drawn scrutiny and suspicion from both sides of the aisle. Meanwhile, Usha Vance has remained largely in the background, but not because she lacks credentials. A Yale Law School graduate who clerked for Chief Justice John Roberts, Usha has a legal pedigree that rivals her husband's public persona. She's often described as intensely private, but that hasn't stopped her from being a quiet but powerful influence in JD's life. Those who know her speak of her sharp intellect, fierce loyalty, and no-nonsense attitude. She's not just along for the ride, she's a co-architect of the journey. What makes the Vances particularly intriguing is the tension between their public alignment and possible private disagreements. JD's populist rhetoric sometimes seems at odds with their elite educations and professional circles. Usha, with her deep roots in the legal establishment, may offer a counterbalance to JD's more volatile political instincts. And yet their partnership seems to endure, suggesting a complex but functional dynamic. As JD's political profile grows, Usha's influence may become harder to ignore. She may not give many speeches, but when she does appear, whether on stage or in leaked snippets of conversation, there's a sense that she's a key part of the strategy. They're not just a couple navigating the political world. They're a team shaping their own narrative in real time. The moment that shook the room. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to crack the polished surface of JD Vance's public persona. In the middle of a serious discussion about conservative ideals, discipline, and traditional family structure, Usha's comment landed with perfect timing. Witty, disarming, and deeply human. The audience responded instantly. Laughter rippled through the room, cutting the tension and shifting the mood. JD, ever the politician, smiled along, but his body language betrayed the unexpected nature of the moment. A slight flush, a stiffened posture, and a delayed joke that didn't quite stick the landing. For a man whose image has been carefully cultivated to align with a tough-love, no-nonsense approach to parenting and politics, the brief exchange introduced a touch of vulnerability and a hint of contradiction. It was as if Usha had gently reminded everyone, including JD, that the version of family life being presented on stage doesn't always mirror reality at home. Observers were quick to dissect the moment. Social media exploded with interpretations. Some praised Usha for her candidness, admiring the glimpse into a more authentic domestic dynamic. Others questioned whether it was an intentional move, perhaps a subtle rebranding effort, or a signal to more moderate audiences that the Vances aren't as rigid as they seem. What made it resonate so widely was its spontaneity. There was no script, no polished pivot, just a wife, speaking with affection and humor, gently cutting through the rhetoric. For those watching, it raised intriguing questions about influence and partnership. Who really sets the tone in the Vance household? Who's guiding whom? Regardless of intent, the moment stuck. In a world of curated narratives and rehearsed sound bites, that small, unscripted comment from Usha Vance managed to say more than a campaign ad ever could. the psychology behind it. Moments like the one between JD and Usha Vance don't just happen in a vacuum. They land because they tap into deeper psychological dynamics. When a political spouse offers a public correction, however gently, it often signals more than humor. Psychologists point to these moments as subtle forms of power negotiation, especially in high-stakes partnerships where public image matters as much as private influence. Usha's interjection during JD's roundtable wasn't loud or confrontational. It was calculated in tone, playful on the surface, yet undeniably pointed. That's where its psychological weight lies. Rather than pushback in private, where the moment would be invisible to the public, Usha chose to insert herself into the narrative in real time. For some experts, that's a textbook move, a soft challenge wrapped in a smile, allowing a partner to correct course without outright conflict. From a psychological lens, it could be seen as a form of status equalization. JD was in control of the narrative, delivering his message uninterrupted, until Usha reminded the audience and perhaps JD himself that the reality at home is more nuanced than what's being presented. In doing so, she humanized both of them. She also asserted her place as someone who not only knows the truth but is willing to voice it, even on stage. There's also the idea of reality anchoring. Political rhetoric tends to idealize. Usha's comment brought things back to the ground. Discipline isn't a campaign slogan when it's happening in real life. It's messy, frustrating, and requires constant negotiation, something most parents understand instinctively. Her remark served as a grounding force, challenging the idea that public personas always reflect private truths. For viewers, it was a rare moment of authenticity in a heavily curated political landscape. For Usha, it may have been something more, a soft but strategic reminder that behind every public figure is someone who knows the full story and isn't afraid to gently and publicly tell it. Reaction from the media public. The media frenzy around the moment was immediate and intense. Within hours, the clip was replayed across cable news networks, dissected frame by frame. Conservative outlets leaned into the humor, presenting the exchange as a charming glimpse into the Vances' marriage. Proof, they argued, of JD's relatability and ability to laugh at himself. Some hosts even suggested that the moment humanized him, showing voters that he's not above a little teasing from his spouse. Liberal commentators, however, seized on the moment with a different lens. For them, it exposed a disconnect between JD's public rhetoric and his private life. The image of the disciplined, authoritative father figure took a hit when juxtaposed with Usha's calm, cutting remark. On several opinion panels, analysts argued that the moment reflected a larger issue with performative politics, that JD's message of rigid family values may not reflect the complexity of real-life parenting. Online, the moment spiraled into full-blown spectacle. Twitter in particular became the epicenter of reaction. Hashtags like #UshaUnscripted and #VanceVibes started trending. Users praised Usha for her timing, intelligence, and authenticity. One viral post read, "Every woman watching just nodded. We've all been there." Another quipped, "Imagine having JD Vance as your husband and still being the funniest person at the table." Memes followed fast. One showed JD mid-blush with the caption, "When your wife claps back and you're on C-SPAN." Another superimposed Usha in a superhero cape with JD in the background looking apologetic. TikTok creators added dramatic music, slow-motion edits, and voiceovers to highlight her moment of control. It was political theater, yes, but it was also a cultural flashpoint. The response proved just how hungry audiences are for unscripted moments in politics. Whether viewed as endearing, emasculating, or empowering, the incident became something bigger than itself. A brief, unscripted exchange that cut through the noise and sparked a conversation about gender, power, and authenticity on the public stage. Is this a pattern? Usha Vance's now viral remark during the political roundtable isn't an isolated incident. It fits into a quiet, recurring pattern that's been visible to those watching closely. While JD Vance has built his brand on a carefully crafted narrative of Appalachian grit and conservative populism, Usha has, on occasion, punctured that image with subtle reminders of the couple's shared reality. one rooted not just in working-class experience, but also in elite education and legal pedigree. During JD's Senate campaign, Usha rarely made public appearances or gave interviews, but when she did, her words carried weight. One such moment came during an interview where JD leaned heavily into his identity as a product of rural Ohio. Usha didn't contradict him, but she did add, "We met at Yale." The line was soft, almost throwaway, but unmistakable in its effect. It reframed JD's narrative without challenging it outright, reminding audiences, and perhaps JD himself, that their story is as much about privilege and ambition as it is about hardship and perseverance. This kind of recalibration seems to be a hallmark of Usha's presence in their public life. She rarely seeks the spotlight, but when she steps into it, there's purpose behind her words. Some insiders close to the campaign have even suggested that she plays a more significant role behind the scenes than many realize, advising, refining, and balancing JD's more confrontational instincts. Where JD can be brash, Usha is measured. Where JD leans into populist rhetoric, Usha grounds the conversation in lived complexity. Her approach is not performative, but it is strategic. She doesn't grandstand or challenge him openly, but she makes her points in ways that resonate, especially with voters who crave authenticity over ideology. Whether it's a quick reminder about their shared Ivy League background or a well-timed joke about parenting, her interventions feel real and uncalculated, even if they're anything but. Over time, this pattern suggests a quiet but powerful influence, one that reshapes the narrative without breaking it, that elevates realism over posturing. Usha's voice, while not often loud, speaks volumes, and each time it emerges it leaves a mark, one that lingers well beyond the moment itself. JD Vance's political image. JD Vance has built his political persona around the image of a working-class hero, a man who rose from humble beginnings to challenge the elites. His memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, set the stage for this narrative, positioning him as a voice for the forgotten people of rural America. But Usha's recent public comment challenges that narrative in subtle yet powerful ways. In the moment that went viral, Usha's playful remark about JD's parenting style reminded voters that behind the blue-collar facade is a Yale-educated woman, highly accomplished in her own right. She is not just a passive political spouse, but a sharp, opinionated partner who doesn't hesitate to offer her perspective, even if it means gently undermining JD's message. For some of JD's supporters, this is a refreshing moment of authenticity. It humanizes him in a way that makes him more relatable, showing that he's not just a polished politician with a perfect image, but a real person with a real family dynamic. They see Usha's comment as a reminder that even the most outspoken public figures have complex human relationships behind closed doors. However, in the world of right-wing politics, where traditional gender roles and tough masculinity are often championed, being checked by your wife, no matter how playfully, can be problematic. For some voters, especially those who value the image of the strong, dominant male leader, this moment could undermine JD's authority. In a movement where many leaders pride themselves on projecting strength and control, a hint of vulnerability or weakness might not sit well. Political advisors are reportedly divided on the issue. Some believe it makes JD more relatable, appealing to moderate voters who value authenticity. Others worry it could chip away at the alpha image he's worked hard to cultivate. The tension between these two dynamics will likely shape JD's political future as he navigates the complexities of image and influence. What do JD and Usha say about it? When asked about the viral moment in a follow-up interview, JD Vance didn't flinch. With an easy smile, he said, "We joke like that all the time. Usha keeps me grounded and I love her for it." His tone was light, but the message was strategic. This wasn't a misstep or a marital misfire. It was part of their dynamic, something normal and even endearing. Usha, true to form, offered fewer words but arguably the more impactful line. "He knows when he's exaggerating, and he knows I'll call him on it." No hesitation, no elaboration, just a calm, confident statement that made clear she's not just a background figure in JD's political story, she's someone who shapes it from the inside. Their responses, though brief, sent a strong message. There was no spin, no apology, no effort to walk back or soften what happened. Instead, they owned the moment. JD framed it as an example of their marital dynamic, playful, grounded, real. Usha framed it as a matter of truth-telling, the kind of honesty that cuts through performance. This kind of clarity resonated with a wide audience. For supporters who value authenticity, it reinforced the idea that the Vances are more than a political brand. They're a team, with all the complexity and friction that comes with that. And for critics, it showed that Usha isn't afraid to speak up, even if it complicates JD's public image. The couple's calm, composed handling of the situation suggests a comfort with who they are, and a shared understanding of how much the truth matters, even when it's inconvenient. It wasn't a backtrack, it was a reminder the real story doesn't always follow the script. Behind the power couple dynamic, the roundtable moment sparked more than just laughs. It pulled back the curtain on the Vances' marriage and ignited a broader conversation about power dynamics and political partnerships. How do couples who both have elite credentials, strong personalities, and high ambitions balance truth, ambition, and ego, especially when one is in the spotlight and the other operates largely behind the scenes? Usha Vance, though often out of the public eye, is far from a passive partner. While JD's political ascent has dominated headlines, Usha has deliberately chosen a quieter path, not out of deference but out of strategy. Her silence isn't submission, it's selectiveness. And when she does speak, people listen. Her timing is sharp, her words are deliberate, and her impact is unmistakable. Friends close to the couple describe her as JD's closest confidant, someone who advises with clarity and doesn't sugarcoat the truth. She isn't just a sounding board, she's a force behind many of JD's decisions, both personal and political. Insiders say she plays a key role in shaping how he presents himself, and when necessary, she reins him in. Their relationship isn't built on the traditional model of one star and one supporter. It's more like a partnership of equals, each bringing different strengths, each aware of the power they hold. Usha may not seek the spotlight, but she understands how and when to step into it to shift a narrative or reset the tone. The viral moment wasn't just a glimpse into their marriage, it was a quiet assertion of influence. Usha reminded everyone that while JD may be the public face, she's deeply embedded in the architecture behind it, and that balance between ambition, respect, and strategy is what truly defines their power couple dynamic. Viral power of one moment. In a digital world driven by speed and spectacle, the most powerful moments are often the most understated. Usha Vance's comment didn't need volume or theatrics to resonate. It was a brief, off-the-cuff remark, delivered with calm confidence, and that was exactly what gave it weight. In a political environment saturated with sound bites and spin, her quiet honesty cut through the noise. The clip exploded online not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. It revealed something unscripted, something that felt authentic in a space where so much feels manufactured. Viewers didn't just hear her words, they felt the shift in power, the subtle recentering of the spotlight. In that moment, Usha Vance went from background figure to cultural symbol. Not because she demanded attention, but because she didn't. Her restraint became the statement. Her truth, calmly delivered, redefined the scene. It's a reminder of the strange physics of virality in modern politics. That the most lasting impressions can come not from dominance or decibels, but from a single, quiet sentence that lands with undeniable truth. So, what do you think? Was Usha Vance's public jab just playful teasing, or something more calculated? Was it an offhand remark or a strategic flex from the woman who may be one of the most influential behind-the-scenes figures in modern politics? No matter where you stand, one thing is clear. Usha Vance made her presence known, and in a political world dominated by bluster and bravado, sometimes the smartest move is a soft, perfectly timed push. We'll be watching closely to see what she does next. Will JD Vance adjust? Or will Usha continue to be the quiet force keeping him honest? If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We've got more political drama, behind-the-scenes breakdowns, and untold stories coming your way every week. Stay curious, stay informed. And remember, the truth is often in the moments they don't expect you to notice.